In the opening scene of the movie, Michel Salenzi pedals his bicycle through the streets of Trieste, Italy, on his way to school. Clutching a €50 note, he eagerly anticipates purchasing a costume for an upcoming party. At school, he sits behind Stella, the object of his affection for quite some time. However, their class is abruptly interrupted by a visit from a police officer named Giovanna, who also happens to be Michel's mother. She's there to discuss the disappearance of a student and urges the class to report any information they may have to the police. After Giovanna departs, Michel's nose begins to bleed, forcing him to rush to the bathroom for some respite. Seizing this vulnerable moment, his tormentors confront him, coercing him to hand over all his money. Dejected, Michel returns home with only a handful of pennies left in his possession. Undeterred, he decides to make the most of it and heads to a rundown store to purchase a costume. Inside, he requests a superhero outfit. However, all the shopkeeper can offer him is a skin-tight suit paired with a supper cape. The shopkeeper claims the costume to be that of a Chinese superhero, though Michel isn't particularly thrilled with it. Despite his reservations, he purchases the outfit. When Giovanna returns home from her shift, she finds Michel dressed in his less than impressive superhero attire, hesitant to attend the party because he feels ridiculous. Giovanna, seeing past the costume's shortcomings, reassures him of his appearance and encourages him to go to the party. At the event, Michel finds himself enjoying the festivities and even musters the courage to converse with Stella. However, things take a turn for the worse when his tormentors play a video purportedly showing Michel following Stella on the street. They claim to have discovered the video on Michel's phone, accusing him of stalking Stella. Humiliated, Michel retreats to the bathroom, locking himself inside as his classmates pound on the door, urging him to come out. Feeling utterly dejected and wishing for invisibility, the lights suddenly flicker off. Seizing the moment, Michel escapes through the bathroom window and heads home. The next morning, Michel is awakened by his dog's barking. Paying it little mind, he proceeds to the bathroom to brush his teeth. To his utter astonishment, when he gazes into the mirror, he sees only his robe and the toothbrush. His body is completely invisible. In a state of panic, Michel removes his robe. Just then, Giovanna enters the room, but fails to acknowledge her son's presence, confirming that only Michel can see himself. Seizing another opportunity, Michel hastily scribbles a note explaining that he's left for school early and places it on the bed. Unperturbed, Giovanna reads the note and thinks nothing more of it. After exiting the room, Giovanna calls Michel's phone. An invisible Michel answers and assures her that he's okay. Uncertain about his next move, he puts on long-sleeved clothing, covering himself completely. After dressing in his costume from head to toe, he heads to school and observes Stella from a distance. Michel then spots his tormentor and decides it's time to confront him for all the trouble he's caused. He discreetly removes his attire and enters the school, invisible and completely undetected. During class, he seizes the bully's paintball gun and targets the teacher with it, leading the teacher to suspend the bully. Afterward, Michel sneaks into the girls' changing room to observe them as they change. Suddenly, a towel is thrown over him, revealing his silhouette to everyone present. Almost immediately, his powers begin to diminish, causing him to become visible again. The girls scream as they see a naked Michel under the towel. The next day, Michel is in his class, where a psychologist named Basili is giving a lecture about teens' mental health. Two of Michel's classmates recently left home, prompting him to believe it's crucial to grasp teenagers' perspectives. As Michel listens to the lecture, his hands begin to glow, and suddenly they disappear. Thankfully, the class is over, and he runs out before anyone can see him disappear. He dashes home, his body shielded, and finds his little sister Candela in his room. Michel instructs her to go downstairs and turn towards the wall. A wary Candela opens and closes the door to give the impression that she has departed. Michel doesn't turn around to check and starts to take his clothes off. When he turns around, Candela screams in fear, seeing her brother is invisible. Michel reassures her and explains that his costume has granted him superpowers. Meanwhile, at the police station, psychiatrist Basili collaborates with Giovanna to investigate the disappearance of the children. While Giovanna believes the children might have been kidnapped, Basili contends that their behavior is simply rebellious, typical for their age. Upon returning home, Mikhail is still invisible. Overheard on the phone, Giovanna reveals to someone that Mikhail is adopted, leaving him shocked and upset. Mikhail retreats to a nearby swing, unseen due to his invisibility. As he swings, Stella approaches and mistakes him for a ghost. Unfrightened, she invites him to be her friend. Mikhail uses sand to craft a smiling face, communicating with her. They agree to meet again. After Stella departs, Mikhail notices a nearby man seemingly staring at him, despite his invisibility. The man walks off using a stick, indicating he's blind. Later that night, Mikhail visits Stella at her home. She's thrilled to have an invisible friend, and they share a kiss. However, just as their moment deepens, Mikhail's powers begin to wane. Panicking, he flees before Stella can see him reappear. Later, Stella finds herself alone in her gymnastics class when a needle pierces her back, causing her to lose consciousness. Meanwhile, Mikhail, determined to reveal his secret to Stella, heads to her gymnastics class, accompanied by his dog. Upon arriving, he spots a masked man carrying Stella. Mikhail attacks the man, and his dog bites the man's hand. Despite their efforts, the man manages to escape with Stella. Subsequently, the police arrive and determine that the missing children have not run away, but have been kidnapped. Stella wakes up in an unfamiliar facility, her head connected to various wires. Psychiatrist Basili interrogates her, revealing himself as the kidnapper. Stella undergoes tests and is then placed in a cell where she finds two of her previously missing friends. The next day, Mikhail is alone at a nearby beach when the blind man from the previous day suddenly appears before him. This man, seemingly able to anticipate Mikhail's questions, introduces himself as Andrij and claims to be Mikhail's father. Skeptical, Mikhail accuses Andrij of lying. However, Andrij begins to recount his history. Andrij was once an ordinary man from a small town in Russia until a catastrophic nuclear explosion struck the town. The radiation not only claimed many lives but also induced permanent mutations in some survivors, altering their DNA and granting them unique superhuman abilities such as flight, telepathy, invisibility, and more. These mutated individuals, known as specials, were taken to a military camp called the Division to be exploited as weapons. The Division pushed them to their limits, with the specials growing weaker the more they utilized their powers. Due to the radiation's effects, a significant side effect emerged. Almost everyone became infertile, except for Andrij and Mikhail's mother. This made breeding new specials impossible. Despite this limitation, they managed to conceive Mikhail, the first special child. However, shortly after his birth, he was taken away from them. Determined to protect their son, Mikhail's parents fled with him successfully. However, the Division was relentless in their pursuit. Andrij possessed the ability to read minds, while Mikhail's mother could become invisible. Using his mind-reading abilities, Andrij evaded capture with Mikhail, but tragically, Mikhail's mother was killed by the Division during their escape. Knowing that Mikhail wouldn't be safe with him, Andrij placed the infant in front of Giovanna's door after determining she was trustworthy through her thoughts. Now, the Division has discovered that a special child resides in the town. In response, they've been kidnapping children to test them for special abilities. After hearing his true origin from Andrij, Mikhail is stunned. He's almost unable to believe it, but Andrij insists they don't have much time to talk. A nearby fisherman grows suspicious of Andrij and calls the police. Quickly, Andrij gives Mikhail a suit that can turn invisible along with its wearer. Using his mind-reading ability, Andrij erases the fisherman's memory of their encounter and departs. Soon after, the police, led by Basili, arrive at the scene. Giovanna discloses to Mikhail that he is adopted, leading Basili to suspect that Mikhail might be the special child they are searching for. Basili offers to take Mikhail home, and upon arrival, Mikhail notices a hand injury on Basili that corresponds exactly to where his dog had bitten Stella's kidnapper. Suspicious, Mikhail attempts to flee, but Basili has locked all the doors with the intention of abducting him. Desperate, Mikhail enters a room and removes his clothes, turning invisible. He manages to evade Basili and escapes onto the streets. Spotting his bully Avin riding by on his bike, Mikhail hops on behind him and urges him to drive away quickly. An anxious Ivan complies. Once they reach a safe spot, Mikhail reveals himself to Ivan and informs him about the abductions. Meanwhile, Stella and her friends discover a ventilation opening on the ceiling. They stack on top of each other, allowing Stella to climb out. While evading the guards, she scales a tower and reaches a searchlight. Believing her invisible friend is searching for her, she creates a smiling face with the light, flashing it into the sky. Mikhail spots the smiling face and realizes it's a signal from Stella. He and Ivan follow the light, but upon reaching the location, Stella is captured by the guards. Ivan manipulates an electric malfunction using his paintball gun, providing an entry point for the invisible Mikhail. Inside, Mikhail observes Basili and his men monitoring Giovanna and Andrich, who have teamed up to search for Mikhail. Mikhail proceeds to knock out a guard and coerces another to unlock the cell where Stella and the others are held. After freeing them and trapping the guards, Mikhail reveals himself to his astonished friends. While the boys plan their escape, Stella insists they rescue an old man she saw imprisoned in another room. However, when Stella and Mikhail approach the man, she betrays Mikhail, pointing a gun at him. Suddenly, Stella collapses unconscious, and the old man speaks. He reveals his power of mind control, having manipulated Basili and Stella to bring Mikhail to him. He summons a submarine, placing Mikhail and Stella inside before submerging and taking them out to sea. Just as this unfolds, Andrich and Giovanna arrive at the scene and encounter Ivan. With the building rigged to explode imminently, they swiftly rescue the abducted children, Basili, and themselves from inside. Andrich probes Basili's mind and discerns that he was being manipulated by someone else. They make a hasty escape just before the building erupts in a massive explosion. Back in the submarine, Mikhail discovers his telekinetic abilities and wreaks havoc, using his newfound powers to defeat the men and rescue himself and Stella. They finally reach the shore, where a crowd has gathered. Mikhail demonstrates his invisibility to the onlookers, showcasing his power. Andrich informs Mikhail that they must erase everyone's memories to avoid further pursuit from the division. Mikhail agrees and shares a final kiss with Stella. Andrich assures Mikhail that he will return and proceeds to wipe the memories of everyone present. With their memories altered, everyone resumes their normal lives. The scene transitions to a location in Russia, revealing that Mikhail's mother, previously presumed dead, had only been injured during the earlier confrontation. She had managed to thwart the division's plans in the past and has since taken control of it. In fact, she orchestrated the recent efforts to retrieve Mikhail. She now stands against the normal people who view specials as outcasts. In the final moments, a guard informs Mikhail's mother that while they lost Mikhail, they have located his twin sister Natasha. A flashback reveals that Andrich had escaped with 2 children that fateful day. The movie concludes with the guard revealing that Natasha is currently in Morocco, teasing a potential sequel.